Hi Grace Place. I really hope that your 23 days of prayer and fasting is on track and going well. And today I'd really love to encourage you with a testimony from my life about standing in the gap on behalf of a family member or someone who's dear to you. I know that many of you might be doing that through these days of prayer and fasting. You might be standing in the gap on behalf of someone in your life who might not be able to do it for themselves. So a few years ago, someone very dear to me was diagnosed with hepatitis C. She had been to see the doctor and the diagnosis was very clear. And at that time, God laid on my heart that we needed to stand in the gap. We needed to stand and believe by faith for her complete healing. She lived quite a distance away from us. And so after a number of weeks of praying for her and believing God for her healing, we were planning a trip to go and see her. So we went up for prayer, and the pastors and my family stood in the gap, and we believed for her complete healing. And it was a few days later that we had to go down. The whole time, just keeping the faith and believing that God was going to do a miracle, that God was going to heal her completely of this disease. And so a few days later, we went down and saw her, and we prayed, and we stood in faith, and we laid hands on her, and we believed for her complete healing. And it was a number of weeks later when she had to go for further testing to see what kind of treatment the doctors were going to do to treat her for the hepatitis C. And the doctors did the tests, and the tests came back negative. And the doctor was shocked. He couldn't understand why they weren't picking up the hepatitis C. And obviously we know that she was completely healed in the name of Jesus. And because of faith and the fact that we stood believing God that He was going to come through and that He was going to heal her completely. So in Ezekiel 22 and verse 30 it says, I looked for someone who might rebuild the wall of righteousness that guards the land. I searched for someone to stand in the gap in the wall so I wouldn't have to destroy the land. And if you are standing in the gap, what does that actually mean? In the Bible times, the cities that they built had walls around them, and the walls were for protection of the city. And if there was, if the wall was broken or damaged, there was a gap in the wall. And literally the people would stand with their own bodies in those gaps, fighting on behalf of that city so that it wouldn't be compromised. And sometimes when we're praying for family members and we're believing for things for other people and we're standing in the gap, sometimes it means we need to stand and fight. And so I want to encourage you today, if you are standing in the gap on someone, keep the faith, keep fighting, and believe that God will have your miracle ready for you.